While many warbirds from the Second World War are instantly recognizable names, the Do-335 often flies under the radar, even though it boasted some truly revolutionary features. Today we're going to explore the plane's design, engineering, and unique push-pull propeller configuration. We'll also look at its troubled production history, combat record, and post-war fate. So buckle up as we unravel whether the Do-335 truly deserves a place among the top planes of its era. When we talk about the Dornier Do-335 Pfeil, we're really talking about an aircraft that's concept dated back well before it ever took to the skies. The idea first appeared in the late 1930s and early 40s, a period when the major powers were experimenting feverishly with new aircraft designs. In Germany, this experiment was even more intense due to the pressing demands of the Luftwaffe. The war effort required high-performance aircraft that was capable of filling multiple roles. Fighter, bomber, reconnaissance, ground attack, look, you name it, they wanted it. That sense of urgency fueled a constant stream of prototypes from various German manufacturers. Into this mix stepped Claude Dornier, a pioneering aeronautical engineer who had already made a name for himself with innovative flying boats and other advanced designs. His vision was to reduce aerodynamic drag and enhance performance in a way that single-engine or twin-engine side-by-side arrangements just couldn't match. Remember, multi-engine aircraft of the time were often slower or less maneuverable due to drag and asymmetric thrust issues. The latter could be fatal if one engine failed, something that was not uncommon in high-stress combat scenarios. In the earliest planning stages, the Do-335 was envisioned as a high-speed bomber, a concept that made sense given the Luftwaffe's interest in fast-strike aircraft. But as the war dragged on and German priorities shifted, the high-speed bomber idea was briefly shelved and resurrected then multiple times. This was partly because the Luftwaffe's requirements kept changing. One day they wanted more fighters, and the next more bombers, and all the while, Allied aircraft were improving in speed and firepower. By 1940, the Do-335 concept had advanced enough to gain the attention of key decision makers. However, the project was canceled as Germany pivoted toward other designs that were deemed more critical. Yet, Dornier never really gave up on that concept. The push-pull arrangement was too compelling to let go, and a series of behind-the-scenes negotiations kept that dream alive. By 1942, the Luftwaffe's dire need for a fast, versatile aircraft gave the Do-335 project a new lease on life. This time reoriented as a fighter rather than a bomber, this pivot in role was typical of wartime resourcefulness. If it's fast and can carry guns and bombs, then it might be exactly what we need. It wouldn't be until 1943 that the first prototype actually took flight. Despite the long gestation period, hopes were high. German engineers and Luftwaffe brass believed that they might have a game-changer on their hands. A plane that could do well over 400 miles an hour, climb rapidly, and still carry a respectable payload of weaponry was a tantalizing prospect. Enthusiasm ran high, even though development faced the persistent headwinds of competing projects, sabotage, and resource constraints. German aviation was renowned for experimental aircraft, but the Do-335's design stood out for its ingenuity. Claude Dornier's championed aerodynamic efficiency, aiming to eliminate the typical compromises of multi-engine planes. Traditional twin-engine layouts with engines under wings or side-by-side increased drag and caused handling issues if one engine failed due to asymmetrical thrust. Dornier's solution was a push-pull configuration, placing one engine in the nose and another in the tail. This arrangement provided twin-engine power without bulky nacelles or underwing pods, significantly reducing drag. Additionally, if an engine failed, the central thrust line maintained better control. Dornier's small-scale experiments validated the concept, showcasing its potential effectiveness. The Do-335 promised substantial speed gains thanks to its streamlined fuselage and push-pull layout, potentially matching or surpassing some top Allied fighters. This capability excited the Luftwaffe, who were eager for a technological edge as the Allies advanced their aircraft production and introduced newer models. Aesthetically, the Do-335 featured a tail fin and distinctive front and rear propellers, which made it easily recognizable in airfields. The cockpit's forward placement offered the pilot an excellent field of view, enhancing situational awareness that's crucial for roles like fighter or fighter-bomber missions. Dornier also integrated advanced engineering features, like a tricycle landing gear, which was uncommon in the early 40s when tail draggers were standard. This improved ground handling and visibility during takeoff and landings, reducing accidents, which was a significant advantage in wartime conditions with varied pilot skill levels. Overall, Dornier aimed for an aircraft that excelled in speed, climb rate, and versatility, suitable as a bomber, interceptor, or reconnaissance plane. However, translating this vision into operational hardware was a bit challenging. The push-pull system required meticulous engineering and often competed with other projects for resources. Despite these hurdles, the Dornier team persisted, refining the design until prototype testing. Central to the Do-335's innovation was that push-pull configuration, distinct from typical twin-engine setups like the P-38 Lightning. By aligning both the Daimler-Benz DB603 engines with a single fuselage, front and rear, the design reduced drag and improved a lot of aerodynamic issues. This setup also mitigated control issues if an engine failed, enhancing safety. However, the push-pull design introduced complexities. Cooling the rear engine was difficult due to limited airflow, necessitating careful placement of ventilation ducts and radiators. The rear propeller required sophisticated engineering to ensure stability and minimize vibration. Maintenance was also challenging, as the tail-mounted engine was less accessible, complicating repairs under wartime pressures. Emergency egress was addressed with an innovative ejection seat system that jettisoned the rear propeller and dorsal fin, allowing the pilot to escape safely. This groundbreaking safety feature highlighted the advanced thinking behind the Do-335. Now, despite these challenges, the Do-335's push-pull system delivered a superior power-to-weight ratio, with two DB603 engines producing over 1,750 horsepower each. This enabled speeds exceeding 470 miles an hour, making the Do-335 a remarkable aircraft that combined exceptional speed and significant technical innovation. Few World War II aircraft matched the Dornier Do-335 in raw speed, especially among propeller-driven designs, with most speeds exceeding 470 miles an hour and test flights hitting over 475 miles an hour under optimal conditions. The Do-335 could outrun most Allied fighters. Compared to contemporaries like the P-51 Mustang and the Spitfire Mark 14, which were fast but typically couldn't reach the Do-335's top speed, the Arrow would have been a formidable competitor in a drag race. However, speed isn't the only factor in an aircraft's effectiveness. The Do-335 also featured an impressive climb rate, thanks to those twin engines, allowing rapid ascents that were crucial in engagement where altitude advantage could be decisive. Pilots could quickly reach operational altitude, potentially surprising enemy bombers or reconnaissance planes. In terms of maneuverability, the Do-335 couldn't outturn smaller fighters like the Bf-109 or FW-190, but nonetheless, its handling was better than expected for its size and power. The central thrust line from its push-pull engine layout provided a balanced feel, and a large vertical stabilizer ensured good directional stability. Pilots, though few, found it surprisingly easy to control once accustomed to its unique torque and geometry. Range is another critical performance metric. The Do-335 could carry a substantial fuel load, offering endurance that many late war fighters lacked. This capability meant that it could perform long-range missions, such as a bomber escort, deep strikes, or reconnaissance, combining speed with range, a lethal combination for strategic bombing and intercepting roles. But despite the impressive stats, the Do-335 never saw large-scale deployment due to production bottlenecks, resource shortages, and Allied bombing. Only a small number were used in limited service, leaving its full potential largely untested in high-intensity combat. This unfulfilled promise makes the Do-335 a fascinating subject for aviation enthusiasts, embodying a what-if scenario still debated by historians. For middle-aged aviation buffs familiar with World War II aircraft, the Do-335 exemplifies German engineering that nearly dominated European skies with its speed. The Pfeil's allure for adrenaline-loving pilots was clear. Outrunning most foes was very highly appealing, but however, by the time it was ready, Germany was nearing defeat. The Do-335 was also heavily armed, featuring a 30mm Mk-103 cannon in the nose and two 20mm MG-151-20 cannons in the upper cowling, capable of destroying enemy fighters and bombers. Additionally, it could carry around 500 kilograms of bombs internally, allowing roles in interception, ground attack, or reconnaissance. This versatility was valuable in stretched resource scenarios, potentially leading to specialized variants like night fighters or maritime patrol models. However, late-war German industry's chaos kept advancing variants mostly on paper or just in prototype stages. Its stable push-pull design did enhance offensive precision, which enabled accurate gun runs and bombing passes while maintaining the ability to outrun enemy fighters. But nevertheless, the advanced weaponry and multi-role capabilities required scarce resources, which added logistical challenges. High-powered cannons needed specialized ammunition and quality fuel, which complicated supply chains. Despite these hurdles, the Do-335's formidable weapons and versatility made it an attractive project for the Luftwaffe High Command. The combination of super speed and heavy armament promised an aircraft capable of both air superiority and versatile mission profiles, securing its place as a legendary yet unrealized contender in World War II aviation history. The phrase "too little too late" aptly describes the Do-335's entry into World War II. Debuting as prototypes in 1943, the Do-335 appeared when Germany was already under severe strategic pressure on multiple fronts. The Allies were advancing in North Africa and Italy, and they were gearing up for the invasion of Western Europe, while Soviet forces were pushing back on the Eastern Front. Amidst the turmoil, the Do-335 was one of several wonder weapons that the Nazi regime hoped would turn the tide of the war. Hermann Göring lamented that the Luftwaffe was repeatedly promised more time to develop new technologies, but Germany no longer had the luxury of time. Despite the Do-335 impressing pilots and testers with its performance, the war had decisively turned against Germany. Constant threats to airfields and factories disrupted production schedules. Fuel shortages emerged, and training new pilots on advanced aircraft like the Do-335 became unaffordable for the Luftwaffe. Had the Do-335 been deployed in significant numbers in 1942 or 43, its impact might have differed. Its high speed made it an excellent interceptor of Allied bombers, allowing it to engage before bombers reached their targets and inflict substantial damage with its heavy armament. However, introducing a complex new aircraft required extensive training for ground crews and pilots. Mass production of components and establishing a support infrastructure were challenges that were just insurmountable for Germany as their war effort collapsed. Consequently, the Do-335 had minimal impact on the war, serving more as just a technological showcase than a combat asset. This limited effect is seen both as a missed opportunity for Germany and certainly a relief for the Allies, who faced one less advanced threat in their already perilous skies. This minimal impact also explains why the Do-335 remains relatively obscure compared to the widely produced aircraft like maybe the Bf-109 or FW-190 or Messerschmitt Me-262. Which are known primarily to aviation enthusiasts and historians who appreciate its innovative design. A notable real-world encounter involving the Do-335 occurred late in the war when a French pilot approached the Pfeil in flight. Recognizing the unique twin-propeller design and superior speed, the French pilot avoided engagement, highlighting the Do-335's genuine performance capabilities. This anecdote underscores the aircraft's potential advantage in air combat, though such instances were exceedingly rare due to the limited number of operational Do-335s. Ultimately, the Do-335 story illustrates how timing and logistics can determine the success of even the most impressive advanced technologies. The Pfeil did not make a significant mark in World War II history, but it remains an intriguing what-if in aerial combat. Its impressive speed and armament suggested that it could have been a formidable opponent had it been introduced earlier and produced in larger numbers, but the realities of a collapsing German war machine prevented it from fulfilling its potential. Claude Dornier's legacy in aviation is broader than just the Do-335. The Pfeil remains one of the most fascinating achievements. Before the project, Dornier was known for designing flying boats and other cutting-edge aircraft that broke records for size and range. With the Do-335, he tried to solve one of the persistent problems of multi-engine aircraft: drag and asymmetric thrust. And it was in a way that no major manufacturer had fully embraced. In many respects, he succeeded, at least on a technical level. Post-war, Dornier's company pivoted like many other German aerospace firms. With Germany's aircraft industry heavily restricted initially, much of the work turned to other engineering areas, like appliances or light civilian planes. Over time, Dornier would re-enter the aviation world, contributing to post-war aerospace projects in West Germany. The company's name lived on, and eventually it got involved in projects for the European space program and built successful regional commuter planes decades later. Yet the Do-335 stands out as a key highlight in Dornier's storied profile. Historians often argue that the Do-335 was an example of over-engineering by a nation that was already stretched too thin. They say that Germany should have poured resources into more straightforward designs and produced more jets. Others maintain that the Do-335, if introduced earlier, may have served as a potent deterrent against Allied bombing raids. But whatever your stance, there's no denying that Dornier's emphasis on innovation left a mark on aviation history. The push-pull concept never really became mainstream, but it did resurface from time to time in experimental planes, both in military and civilian roles. For instance, small general aviation aircraft usually adopts push-pull layouts to give twin-engine safety without wing-mounted engines. While none of these subsequent designs aim for the raw speed or firepower of the Do-335, You can still draw a line from Dornier's 1940s work to later engineering approaches that value central thrust lines and reduce drag. In a broader sense, the Dornier name carries the aura of German engineering ambition. Even when resources were scarce and the political climate was fraught with tension, Dornier reached for the skies, a spirit that can be seen in post-war European aviation as well, where collaboration across former adversaries eventually led to groundbreaking projects like the Airbus Consortium. The DO-335 may have been a dead end in immediate tactical terms, but it contributed to a lineage of thinking that prized innovation, even when the odds were stacked against success. For those middle-aged American men, and anyone else really who grew up reading about World War II planes, the Dornier brand might have taken a back seat to the likes of Messerschmitt or Focke-Wulf, but yet behind the scenes, Dornier was always pushing boundaries. The DO-335 exemplifies that drive. An aircraft that might have changed the course of aerial warfare had it come earlier or been supported more fully. It's a testament, a fitting testament certainly, to Claude Dornier's lifelong commitment to flight. The question inevitably arises when discussing the DO-335. Could it have been the best plane of World War II if it had been produced in sufficient numbers and introduced sooner? Well, best can be a bit subjective. Do we mean the most versatile, the fastest, the most heavily armed, or the most cost-effective? If we weigh speed and armament against real-world utility, the DO-335 would score exceptionally high on paper, but fall short on operational impact. Some argue that the Pfeil could have been a nightmare for Allied bombing formations. With its speed and heavy cannons, it would have posed a serious threat to lumbering B-17s and B-24s. Even escort fighters like the P-51 Mustang or P-47 Thunderbolt might have had a tough time catching a well-flown DO-335 if it decided to break off the engagement. The plane's climb rate would also have given it an edge in scramble situations. In theory, it could reach altitude quickly enough to intercept raids before they reach their targets. But best also hinges on availability and reliability. War is a numbers game. Even an excellent design is useless if you only have a handful. The P-51 Mustang, or the Spitfire, might not have had all the technological bells and whistles of the DO-335, but they were produced in massive quantities and refined through iterative improvements. Thousands upon thousands were built, and they had vast support networks for maintenance, repairs, and pilot training. This broad deployment allowed them to dominate the skies. Meanwhile, the DO-335, it remained a boutique item. It was rarely seen, rarely used, and lacked the robust logistical framework that underpins sustainable combat operations. We also have to consider the historical context. By the time the DO-335 was flight-ready, jet technology was coming of age. The Me-262 provided a glimpse into the future of air combat, a future in which speed alone wouldn't be enough if you were still using piston engines. Jets were rewriting the rules, and the DO-335, despite being a pinnacle of piston engine design, was an evolutionary dead end in a rapidly changing battlefield. Yet, for pure fascination, few World War II aircraft rival the DO-335. Its push-pull design, advanced safety features, and the staggering speed it could achieve are all reasons to label it an engineering wonder. So, was it the best plane of World War II? Probably not in practical terms, but it might have been one of the most remarkable feats of engineering from that era. An aircraft that showed what could happen when innovative thinking collided with wartime necessity, leaving us all with an enduring what-if scenario that keeps historians and aviation fans coming back for more. In the final analysis, best is a complicated notion. The DO-335 represents an apex of piston engine technology, and in a parallel universe where resources weren't so constrained and maybe it arrived earlier, it may have given the Allies a severe headache. As it stands, though, it remains a historical footnote with a legendary aura, simultaneously overshadowed by the jets that came after it and admired for the promise it never fully realized. Thanks for joining us on this extended journey into the world of the Dornier Do-335 Pfeil. A plane of incredible promise, but ultimately unable to alter the course of history. This is a fascinating testament to the ingenuity and complexity of World War II era aviation. We hope you found this video helpful in understanding both the triumphs and tribulations of this remarkable aircraft. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hey, why not stick around? Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of aviation and history enthusiasts. There's always more to explore, so stay tuned for our next adventure into the skies of the past. Safe flying, everyone.